My name's Caroline, and thanks for joining me for this video, which is all about how to release tension in your back, hips and hip flexors if you've been spending a bit too much time seated at the computer recently, as I have been. If you have any joint problems or injuries that you think might be made worse by exercise or stretching of any kind, then please do consult with your physician or your physiotherapist to make sure that this or any exercise program is appropriate for you. We're going to do a lot of work today lying on our back, a little bit in all fours and a small amount in standing as well. And at the start, I've got some equipment ready, which is handy, and so we're going to be using it. I've got a couple of massage balls. These are actually APPI massage balls, but any massage balls would be fine. I've only had massage balls for a relatively short amount of time actually, and in the past I've used nice hard children's bouncy balls, tennis balls, or even this little ball, an egg-shaped ball, which I bought one year coming up to Easter. It's quite useful for getting into sort of any little small places where you might have tension. But we'll look at lying on some balls to release tension. As it happens, I've also got some yoga blocks and bricks rather, and some blocks. I've got a strap and a resistance band. But you can use a towel instead of a strap to support your legs when you're stretching, or even if you happen to have a tie, an old school tie or somebody's tie that they're not using anymore, can give that a go. Let's get started. So I'm just going to come down onto the mat, rolling down through the spine, trying to stretch my spine as I come down. So I need to use my abdominal muscles and try to roll down segment by segment all the way through until I arrive on the floor. If you feel that your spine or your back is not quite strong enough for that, come onto your side and then just roll down through the spine that way and then come onto your back. Usually it's a good idea just to check that our spine is aligned, and I do that by looking down the front of the body just to see if my nose is in line with my navel. It's not foolproof, but it's quite a good way. And then from there I space out my spine. So I usually do that by lifting my hips up and then replacing my pelvis towards the mat again, just balancing the weight out right side, left side. And then I lift my ribs up and lengthen my waist out of my hips, and then bring my ribs down and balance the weight out right side, left side across my ribs. Then supporting my head with my hands, I release my neck from between the shoulder blades, just gently opening and lengthening the neck to come down like that. And then it should be relatively lengthened out and pretty well aligned. Let's think about releasing our shoulders to begin with. And one practice which I find is quite useful for that is to fold my arms, take hold of the elbows and keep the firm grip on the elbows. And then from there, taking a circle, that's how I'm going to go clockwise, from my waist out towards the side with both arms, keeping both shoulders in contact with the mat, releasing the arms upwards towards my head, and then the arms travelling over towards the other side, keeping both shoulders still in contact with the mat, and back to my waist. If the aim is to release tension from the shoulders, we need to keep the same reference points, and that's why keeping hold of your elbows or the forearms at the same point all the way through the circle, even if the range of movement is quite small, will be the most effective way as you come back to this practice time by time of releasing tension in the shoulder joints. So it's a nice, free, easy breath. Just gently releasing space within the shoulder joints as I go, keeping the back of my shoulders and ribs in contact with the mat, completing a full circle and relaxing my arms onto the front of my body as I return. So last time in this direction, nice in-breath there helps the stretch as the arms go above and behind the head, and then the arms coming back
onto the abdomen. Let's swap the hold so that the other forearm will be uppermost this time, and off we go again, but in the opposite direction. So this time, of course, going anti-clockwise. So the arms releasing around and then over to the side and back to the center, relaxing the arms on the waist. And then around again, nice, free, easy breath. And again, really let the arms come to rest on the waist each time. This helps the shoulder joints to absorb the release that we've just worked through. And then around we go again. Nice, deep breath, helping to open space up between the ribs, stretching the muscles between the ribs, the intercostal muscles, and coming back again, relaxing the arms onto the abdomen. And let's give it one more circle, sweeping around. Nice, easy, free, deep breath, and back again, arms coming onto the waist. And from here, if we just release the arms, the hands from the arms, and then the arms can roll out at the sides, and just for a moment, letting the shoulder joints really absorb that releasing and opening that we've been doing. Good. So as well, quite a useful stretch is when we can bring the arms up above us, cross the wrists over, and turn the palms towards each other. And then from there, keeping your chin tucked towards the chest, aiming to hold your collarbones open and to draw your shoulder blades as much down your back as you can as the arms move back. Just bringing the arms back towards your profile, maybe back towards your ears. Possibly you can get them to the floor. But it's not a good idea to overstretch the shoulder joints as you begin. There's lots of complex muscle connections around the shoulder joint, between the ribs and the collarbones, between the backs of the upper arms and the shoulder blades. And it's best just to come to a point where you feel that, yes, you're opening, but not overstretching. So breathing here, keep your spine lengthening from between the tailbone to the crown. Sometimes if you just hover the head away from the mat as you keep tucking the chin towards the chest, that can help to give you a little bit extra length. Breathing, and then as we're ready again, let's bring the arms down. So we're going to swap the wrists around and then let the arms come up again. And gently keeping the collarbones as wide as you can, your shoulder blades as wide against the back of your rib cage as you can. Shoulder blades drawing down the back, and we bring the arms back. Breathing here. Very helpful if you can get the breath into the mid-depth of the chest. Breathing into that part of your chest which is just below your shoulder joints. A spacious breath, and breathing out, relaxing your spine into the mat. And again, just taking it easy, how far your arms are going at any given point. They may go all the way back, but if they do, check that your spine's staying on the mat rather than the ribs popping up or the waist popping up. It's not so effective. And again, if it's useful, if it's helpful, tucking the chin towards the chest, collarbones stay broad and open, shoulder blades really stay on the back. A little bit of a curl here, breathing, roll back down through your spine and allowing the arms to return again. And once again, just releasing, letting go. So again, just spending a moment to soften out across the upper back. Then let's move on to the lower body, and we can bring the legs in and towards us and begin to release the hip joints a little bit. So if we start with the legs together, we bring the legs in and down and towards us, just releasing from the hip joints, releasing the thighs, letting them move outwards, and bringing the legs around again and back together and hugging the legs towards the abdomen. And again, nice in-breath here again, helping to put space into the body, legs coming back together again, and exhalation, legs coming down, breathing in, nice wide, spacious breath, and breathing out, back in again, and through. Then also reversing this action, so legs moving away, releasing out towards the sides and then back in again. Legs moving away, out towards the sides and back in again. So again, a nice inhalation as the legs move away and round, and an exhalation as they come back. And back again. Good. Let's from there hold on to the right leg whilst we slide the left leg away from us. And with the left leg sliding away, there's the possibility that the leg can actually help you to lengthen your spine. So see if you can keep your leg in line with your tailbone. And as you stretch through towards your heel, if you push towards the heel, see if you can feel your tailbone and your sacrum, your lower spine essentially, lengthen a little bit towards that heel. Let's keep hold of the right leg with the left hand, just hugging it in, keeping the shoulders nice and broad and open and the shoulder blades relaxed against the back of the rib cage. And then as it's comfortable, breathing in, stretching and releasing your right arm up and back. And you might feel happy to simply rest here, breathing, opening a little bit of space over the front of the spine on your inhalations. And with your exhalations, allowing your the back of your spine to relax and lengthen, and the spine really relax into the mat. And as that happens, you can probably feel the weight of the arm, your right arm, and the weight of your left leg relax a little bit more fully into the floor. Now, for some people, having the arm behind all the time is actually quite uncomfortable. And it's also possible here to breathe in with the inhalations to let the arms sweep up and back, and with the exhalations to bring the arm back down again. This is also a lovely practice. It opens the breath just gently. It's quite a yogic practice. And again, helps you to release the breath with the exhalations, with the arm traveling. It helps the breath to move. Whichever you prefer, whichever feels the most appropriate, the most comfortable for you at present, that's the best one to do. Find something that feels right for you and just allow that to be where you are. So last couple of breaths here. Thinking about the back of the neck relaxing and lengthening, especially if you've been on the computer, it might be arching a little bit. I have to keep checking mine. I have been on the computer a lot lately. And then once again, as you're ready, with an exhalation, relaxing the arm towards the side and just allowing that right leg to come back down towards the floor. Let's start with both knees bent and the soles of the feet in contact with the mat, the double V as I call it. And then let's from there bring the left leg in and towards the front of the body and sliding the right leg away. So again, as the right leg goes away, thinking in terms of the inside of the leg following the line of the spine. So there's a sense that the base of the spine can stretch and lengthen towards that right heel. With the raised leg, we can be holding it with our hands quite close to the abdomen, or if that doesn't feel comfortable, or if the leg feels a bit too far away and you're having to lift and arch your neck away from the floor, then take something, a strap or a towel or anything that you have which will pass underneath the back of the knee and just help you to hold the leg where it's comfortable so that it's not a strain. Because the idea of this practice, which as a yoga posture is Ardha Pavanuktasana, is that we should be relaxing our back, relaxing our spine, as well as breathing. So then, with the left leg gathered up and towards us, the left arm can travel up and back and rest on the mat. Again, if you preferred that resting position to a moving position for the arm, you could bring your bricks or blocks or a cushion or a pillow in and just let the arm rest there where it's comfortable with some support. So that's another way to do it. So it can be like this. And alternatively, we're flowing the arm with the breath. So breathing in, nice stretch through into the right leg and heel, arm moving up and back, Exhalation, just allowing the body to really relax into the support of the mat and the floor beneath again. Breathing in, opening. So in either practice, again, feeling that the spine is able to open over the front of the spine on the inhalations, and that with the exhalations, the back of the spine can relax, and the whole back relax into the mat. So I've worked through a last slow round of the breath here. And then as you're ready with an exhalation, let's bring the arm back towards the side and let's just gently slide the left leg away from us. And we let the knees and the toes roll outwards, and then we can just roll the legs inwards and outwards a couple of times at the hip joints. And we can gently shimmy the hips on the mat and gently shimmy the ribs and the shoulders on the mat as well. So let's have a little look at putting the balls in underneath the upper back, underneath the shoulders. And it could be that you can feel some tension in and around the rims of the shoulder blades, either the points of the shoulder blades or on the insides of the shoulder blades, and sometimes right up here at the base of the neck, close to the shoulder blades. At the moment, I've got a spot of tension right here. And so what I do is to take the massage ball with the spikes on it and just pop it into that spot where I feel the tension. And then try to roll on that spot with the spiky massage ball. And it usually is better with the spiky massage balls to have a little bit of a thick top on as you're doing it. Now if it's quite warm where you are, then instead maybe put a towel between your shoulder and the massage ball if you're using a massage ball. And at the moment I'm a little bit lopsided, so if you're lucky enough to have two, then I think it is helpful and useful to pair them up, so that although for me at the moment the main emphasis is in the shoulder blade on my right side, with a bit of balance from the second ball, it feels more comfortable, a little bit more effective. Now I can notice as well that my spine's a bit arched, and it could be if my neck were really arching, or if you felt that yours were really arching as well, it is a better idea to support the neck. Just keep the neck as long as you can. The tendency will be for the neck to be arching like this a bit if we're spending a lot of time looking at a computer screen. And we really don't need to overly compress our necks too much. The bones in the neck are really quite small. The discs in the neck are really quite small as well, the intervertebral discs. And the more lengthened and aligned we can keep our necks as a general practice, so much the better for the long-term comfort of our necks, really. So I'm sliding down a little bit. I feel the tension has moved on from one spot, and I'm sliding down a little bit to get the massage balls to work on a different spot now slightly. If you haven't got a massage ball, my balls are rolling around, try one of these instead. For a long time I used these hard, this is very hard, actually bouncy ball for a child. I myself am quite happy to use a hard ball. It's actually very good, this one. Can buy them sometimes in the supermarkets. And I think in many ways it's quite as good as a massage ball, because it's very, very small, so it gets right into those ridgy areas. The tennis balls are softer, and again it depends on what you prefer. You know, don't work so hard that you end up with bruises. Wouldn't be a good idea. So just test it out for you yourself. What seems to work best. And as well, I can come up here to these areas at the base of the neck which tend to get a little bit tense. Just putting the balls in where I feel the main nodule of the tension, sometimes just resting onto that point of the very center of the tension and just holding there. You might find that you sort of almost get a little twitch or a jiggle as you press into the tension, and then just a little bit it releases. So one way or another, we'll give this another sort of few breaths. Once you've released some tension, rolling a little, as it's also helpful, as we did before. Just working through different tension points. Good. So then, gradually, just thinking about moving on from the balls, and bring them out from underneath. Like marbles. So let's then think about releasing tension again from the lower body, and to do that we could come into a spinal twist. So let's first of all just open the arms out in line with the shoulder joints. If you can let your arms lengthen out in line with your collarbones, so that although the arms are in line with the shoulder joints, it's quite a low line, you'll be able to feel more release across your chest muscles that way than if the arms are quite high like that. So you really feel lots of space, fingertips to fingertips, across your upper body. And then my ideal with spinal twists is that they really lead from the spine. We can of course pull our spine into a twist by pulling with the legs across. However, to really mobilize the spine, see if you can send your mind quite deep into your body, and bone by bone through your spine, release the weight of the spine towards the side. So at present, I'm releasing towards the left side, but you can release to either side, it doesn't matter. So tailbone coming over, and then the sacrum. And to control this movement, I need to use quite a lot of strength in my lower abdomen, in the front of my abdomen, maybe my navel pulling to the spine, and in my waist as well, little by little coming over. If the twist has gone to the left side, there's a possibility that the right shoulder has come a bit away from the floor. So to counteract that, take your left arm and press that left hand into the floor to drop the right shoulder back. And often the head and neck just rolls across, and that can give you a nice stretch through the outside of the neck. If that doesn't feel comfortable, just keep the head centered. Better to keep the head centered than in the same direction as the lower body. And from here, then I think the best is to just allow the muscles in the legs to relax. People have a tendency to press over and arch the spine. And really what that does is work into the mobility of the spine, the capacity of the joints of the spine to move. But if we want to really stretch and release the muscles, which is so often where the tightness actually is rather than within the joints themselves, we need to maintain body alignment. So one joint aligning with the next joint with the next joint. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm keeping my spine relatively long, avoiding an arch in the small of the back. And as I release and lengthen over the front of my spine, I'll feel a little bit of letting go in the hip, the front of the hip. And as I release and let go through the side of my body, from my shoulder joint, down through the side, outside of the hip, into the thigh, again, I'll feel a little bit of a release going through my outer thigh. Now, sometimes when we are releasing tension in twists, we can find that it's a little bit hard to breathe. And a good solution to that is on the exhalations, to emphasize your exhalation and to let your navel draw to the spine with your exhalations. And as you breathe in, think in terms of breathing into the mid-depth of the chest, so the space directly underneath the shoulder joints as much as you can. So another couple of deep, slow, easy breaths here. And then gradually and gently, as you feel ready, coming back to the center. So check that your abdominal muscles are engaged, and reeling back through the spine in the rib cage and through the spine in the waist, sacrum, tailbone, coming back into the center. Giving the body a moment or two to absorb that last twist. Sometimes it's useful again to space your spine out. The twists do lengthen the spine. Just double checking those in line with the navel again. And then as we're ready, thinking about taking a twist to the other side. Aiming to lead from the spine, letting your mind drop into the depth of the body and then releasing the tailbone across, and then the sacrum across, and then vertebra by vertebra, releasing your waist across. Just allowing your shoulders to remain broad and open, the upper back to remain as soft and relaxed and as lengthened as possible. And then once again, if the twist has gone towards the right side, there's a possibility that the left shoulder has lifted up and away from the floor a little bit. So just pressing that left arm into the floor and turning the head, dropping the shoulder down, and the head and neck may turn as well. So if it's comfortable here, head and neck staying towards the left side, or otherwise centering again. But for me, it is quite comfortable. And so I'm just going to aim to keep my spine lengthening here between the tailbone and the crown, and relaxing through the outside of my leg, down towards outside of the hip, outside of the leg, down towards the knee, and releasing as well over the front of the spine into the inside of my left hip especially, down towards the knee. And again, nice, deep, slow, even breaths helping with this position. Keeping the exhalations quite long, drawing the navel to the spine. And again, allowing the inhalations to really expand the mid-chest beneath the shoulder joints. So we'll take one last slow round of the breath here. And then once again, as you're ready, wheeling the spine back in and towards the center, bringing the ribs back, bringing the spine through the waist back, sacrum and tailbone back right through to the center. We'll let the arms come back in and towards the sides, and again we might be ready to lengthen our spine out a little bit on the mat. And then again coming back to releasing around the hip joints. So let's hug the right leg in and towards us, sinking it towards the abdomen, exhalation, and breathing in to release the leg away. And breathing out, bringing the other leg in, and breathing in to release away. So it could be that the leg really doesn't make it to the front of the body, and in which case we just come in as far as feels comfortable. We might just begin to feel that we're releasing and opening a little bit through the back of the thigh and the lower back. Hugging the legs in and down. Let the elbows move outwards, let the shoulders broaden against the mat, and the back of the neck stay nice and long and released. And again, if it's easier to do that with a folded towel beneath the head, or a block, or a small cushion or pillow, then doing that. But ideally, keep the neck nice and long and released. So let's work this through another couple of rounds of the breath to both sides. So breathing out, hug one leg in, breathing in to return, breathing out to hug one leg in, breathing out to return. And last round. And releasing. Good. Let's open up through the back of the leg as well. When we're seated for a long time, the hamstrings are contracted, and this does shorten them. And even, I have to say, despite stretching a lot, normally speaking, with all this sitting that I've been doing recently, my hamstrings are so tight. I woke up with cramp in them this morning, so It's a high time to get them stretched again. It's often very useful to use a strap or a towel or any long piece of fabric that you feel will reach to your foot and down to your hands for stretching the hamstrings. You know, perhaps we may be quite supple, we're able to hold the leg, to bring the leg in with the neck long and released and the shoulders broad and the spine engaged to the mat or in neutral spine, and that's fine. But if the reality of doing the stretch without any support is something like this, I would say it's so much more beneficial to us to actually have an aligned position through the rest of the body when we're stretching and lengthening. Whatever we do in terms of training the body, that's what we get. So if we lengthen our hamstrings with our back and body like this, then we've lengthened our hamstrings for a back in that position and that shape. But if we allow our spine to be nice and long and released against the mat, as we work on opening the hamstrings, even if we need a little bit of support for that, then ultimately what we're doing is lengthening our hamstrings at the same time as having good posture, and that long term is just so much more beneficial. Legs often get tired in this raised position. It does take a certain amount of local muscle strength on the front of the thigh, and that's another reason why for many people it's helpful to have some kind of support to work with. So being here, if you're working with support, if you're working with a held hamstring practice, just seeing if you can create space all through your back. So come to an opening, a sensation of opening in the hamstring that you can tolerate comfortably. And with the inhalations, creating a little bit of space in the throat, allowing the throat to open from the inside as your breath comes in, creating a little bit of space through the chest and the thoracic back in the back of the rib cage. So again, as you breathe in from the inside, allowing the collarbones to widen, allowing each pair of ribs to widen away from your spine on your inhalations. With the exhalations, seeing if it's possible, again, to connect with all the little spinal processes on the back of the spine and let those spinal processes soften downwards, one after the other, towards your tailbone. And still with the inhalations, working with this sense of broadening, see if it's possible to, from the inside, broaden through the back of the waist. And if it's possible to, from the inside, broaden and open on the inside of the pelvis and between the sitting bones. And then again, with the exhalations, allowing the back of the spine to soften and to relax. The lower back to broaden against the mat, and the hip joints as well to soften, both of them. And in fact, by focusing on opening the trunk, by relaxing the spine and relaxing the hip joints, then so much more readily do the hamstrings open. And this kind of pulling on the hamstrings, etc., etc., a bit like pulling on an elastic band. You pull on it and then it springs back to where it was. Or it might break. I'm not saying your hamstrings will break by doing that necessarily, but they don't tend to be very, very productively responsive to that approach, I find. So let's relax on that first side, and if it was comfortable for you, setting up on the second side in the same way, with the spine nice and lengthened, nice and relaxed against the mat, using something to support your leg if you feel that that's going to assist you to remain aligned and relaxed through your spine and through your neck, ideally the tailbone also remaining on the mat, and then breathing away, opening space through the throat from the inside and the chest and the back of the rib cage, waist and hips, between the sitting bones, with your exhalations relaxing your spine, the pelvis, into the hip joints. For some people, the held stretches are really inaccessible, and if that's the case for you, just change it, just adapt it, do something that is accessible and that feels comfortable and allows your body to feel happy to come back to your stretching and opening routines on a regular basis. And what I would recommend as one solution to that is, with your exhalations, hugging the weight of your leg in towards your body, relaxing your back into the mat, relaxing your hip joints both sides. And then with the inhalation, with the aim of keeping your back solidly in contact with the mat, let your inhalation widen your arms to the sides and let your leg lengthen upwards. And then once again on the exhalation, letting the weight of your back sink and soften into the mat. Fold your leg in and towards you, hugging it in, both hip joints softening. And then with your inhalation, gently and slowly, leading from the sitting bones through the back of the thigh in the movement, and let the arms open outwards. Create space through the trunk of your body, through your pelvis, into your hip, and ultimately into the back of the leg. So in this position where we are on the exhalation at present, if you're following this option, it's the same opening, the same stretch, but a modified version of it that we have in this bigger position. And the more gently and softly we can travel from one position into the next position, the more likely we are to be able to really release and open the hamstrings. So whichever practice we're in, let's just give it another couple of breaths here. Really opening, broadening. Doesn't matter if the leg doesn't straighten, it can just come to a softer position like that. You can easily open like this. It's wherever your opening position is, just moving into that comfortably. And again on an exhalation, folding in and down. So once again, let's slide both of our legs away from us along the mat. Let's roll the knees and the toes outwards. Let the legs rock inwards and outwards a couple of times, gently at the hip joints. And gently shimmy the hips on the mat. You can gently shimmy the shoulders on the mat. Rolling the arms inwards and outwards a couple of times there as well, just to release. And then very gently and slowly, letting the head turn to one side, coming centre. Letting the head release to the other side, coming centre. And back again, and back again. We're going to look again at opening the front of the hips and also opening the front of the spine. So when we're on the computer for a long time, or if we're sitting at a desk for a long time, we're rounded forwards, fronts of the hips are tightening, hip flexors are tightening, and the front of the spine is buckling forwards, and some of the muscles that hold it in that position are strengthening in that position, and the muscles on the other side that should support it in upright are stretching and probably taking up tension, which means it's harder for them to come back to a sense of useful strength to support the posture. What we're going to do at the moment is to open the front of the spine, and just beginning that practice by bringing the feet into a parallel position. One way to do that, especially because we can't see our feet when we're lying on the floor like this, with the back on the mat and both knees bent so the legs are in the double V, soles of the feet in contact with the mat. What we can do is to bring the feet together, and then holding our heels together, just move the toes outwards, and then bring the heels in line with the toes. And that has pretty much brought our feet in line with our hip joints, which is a good spacing for the optimum opening on the hip joints as we roll our spine up and away from the mat, as we're going to do. In this practice, it's very useful to allow the spine to lengthen before we maintain the practice. And I'll do that usually in my own practice just by rolling through a few times. Ideally, we lead the tailbone initially towards our heels, and then as we begin to peel the tailbone and then bone by bone of the spine away from the floor, we can aim to direct the tailbone to between our knees gradually, have a sense of the pelvis moving away from the shoulders and the waist moving and lengthening away from the shoulders, and the ribs the same. Trying to keep the navel pulling to the spine, so our breath as we breathe in here will be in the chest, so let's hold as we breathe in. And then as we're ready again, let's breathe out, roll back down through the spine with control, vertebra by vertebra, towards the mat. The idea here is to actually lift the spine rather than to push the hips off the floor and bring the spine with them. To be able to roll through the spine, we need to use quite a bit of deep abdominal strength. So if you begin with a nice broad and wide hollowing action in your lower abdomen, right out to the crests of the hip bones, just bringing your tailbone up, and then your sacrum, the next bone up from the tailbone, vertebra by vertebra through the waist. See if you can get the strength of your waist and back muscles to work right around your waist, to come in underneath your spine at the back of the waist like a girder of strength. And the muscles of your ribs as well, guiding your rib cage inwards towards the spine to again support it as it all lengthens away from your shoulders towards your tailbone. You can breathe in up here again, and once again coming down with control. So on the way down we need a little bit more strength at the sides and the front because the back of the spine is stretching more. We come down with support at the front to control the movement. And then again, let's flow that through once more. So let your mind drop into the depth of your body to connect with your spine, thinking in terms of a nice broad and wide scoop and hollow in your lower abdominal muscles, right out to the crests of the hip bones. And then quickly getting your waist muscles to work right into the back of your waist, activating some of your back muscles from beneath to support your spine as you roll through. And the ribs as well, gathering in towards your spine, so you can keep lengthening the spine from the base of the neck towards your tailbone as much as possible. Breathing up here, navel pulling to the spine so the breath stays in your chest. Ribs will widen a little bit as you breathe in, of course. And then exhalation, rolling back down through the spine. So that's 3 breaths practicing with movement. And if that feels like your most comfortable option, if you think that would be the best way to practice opening the front of the spine for you, stick with that option. Otherwise, a couple of slightly stronger options would be to again roll through into the bridge position the way I just did, lengthening my spine, opening it. And then once I get here, making sure I've got lots of strength in the back of my waist, underneath my rib cage here, navel pulling to the spine and my breath working in the chest. I'm going to think in terms of creating a tripod with my arms underneath my back, interlacing my fingers, stretching my knuckles towards my heels, working to keep my knees and my thighs parallel and in line with my toes. Breathing here, breath staying in my chest, and this space between the crests of the hip bones and the rib cage moving towards that space, both the ribs and the pelvis moving towards each other in that space. Breathing, and then again after a few breaths there, rolling back down. Alternatively, another way to support that position is with a brick or a block. So for example, if you find rolling up and down quite tiring, and you'd like to though open the front of your spine, why not just pop a couple of blocks in underneath the back of your hips or anything that will support the hips. Make sure that your spine has still got space, so lifting your ribs and shoulders up and lengthening back towards your neck. And so that's one position. And just move back along the mat again. A much stronger position, but if you know your body well enough to give this a try, then why not give this a try? That you bring the block in, the brick in rather, pop it onto your sacrum, so where the hips and the spine join. And then again, just check that your back is lengthening, that you've got space through the spine and your rib cage, in other words, and through the back of your neck. And then again, just being here, you can create the tripod. Think in terms of your legs being in line with your hip joints and breathing in this position. So I think 6 breaths would be enough. Should be reasonably comfortable. Navel needs to keep pulling to the spine so the breath is really in your chest. Breathe away. Breathe away. And a last breath here. That's it. So then if you were working with one of those options consistently from the start, you would have done 6 breaths by now. If you've been in this very high one, make sure as you roll down that you come down really, really systematically. Keep your spine nice and aligned all the way through to the mat. And at the close of the position, relax. Let your spine have the time to absorb all that movement that it's just been engaging with. And then gently and slowly as you're ready, let's get the muscles working again about the spine. You can stretch down into one leg, stretch into the other leg, lengthen our arms in the opposite direction. Feel the muscles working again about the spine, all through the back, into the arms and into the legs. And at this point, we're going to come over towards the all fours position and just mobilize the spine and integrate all the different lengthening and mobilization that we've been doing prior to this. So as I come around to set up my all fours position, ideally I'll do so with lots of space between the hands and the knees. And I think probably it's easier to see what I'm doing without this heavy top on. So we're going to send the hips back and towards the heels as far as is comfortable, and then coming forward with lots of distance between the knees and the wrists. So really the distance between the knees and the wrists is the same as your spine between the tailbone and the base of your neck when you're standing nice and tall, when you're upright. If your knees are uncomfortable here, think in terms of kneeling on a cushion or doubling your mat up underneath your knees, kneeling on a cushion or a very sort of thin pillow would also work. So here, cat stretch. I'm going to let my tailbone draw downwards by pulling up in the muscles directly in front of my tailbone. And then again, I'm going to keep my legs passive and quiet and my hip joints passive and quiet, so I get a nice powerful lift in the lower abdomen. I'm going to let the navel pull to the spine, the sides of the waist move in and up, and I'm also going to gather my ribs together at the base of my breastbone so I really round in, head and neck move forwards and downwards. And let's breathe in here to bring the breath into the back of the chest. And then from here, as we're ready, lengthening the spine out again. So the aim is to move from the tailbone, keeping the lift in the lower abdomen, coming down from the tailbone. As soon as you can, direct your tailbone behind you so that away from the stretch into the tailbone, you can lengthen each vertebra back through towards a flat back position. Back of hips, back of shoulders, back of head level. Let's keep the waist strong, and from here, if it's comfortable, leading into the crown of the head, releasing forwards through the neck, releasing forwards through the spine and the rib cage, but your waist stays really supported and more or less in line with your pelvis. So once again from here, nice powerful lift in the muscles directly in front of the tailbone. Nice strong scoop and hollow in the lower abdomen. Navel draws to the spine, sides of the waist lift in and up, squeezing at the base of the breastbone, round all the way forwards. Breathing in here. As you're ready again, letting your tailbone move backwards and lengthening each vertebra away from the tailbone. So it is a little bit hard to work out where your spine is in space in the cat stretch, but if you can get a sense of the angle and direction of the tailbone, keep hold of that in your mind, open the spine away from it. Abdominal muscles stay strong, and it's the release forwards towards the crown of the head, through the neck lightly, through the spine and the rib cage lightly. So let's roll it through again another couple of times. I think I'll roll this one through with less commentary because when I'm talking my spine doesn't roll so well, just so that you can see it better. And then as you come into an upward facing cat for the last time, why not think about lengthening the hips back towards the keeping the front of the spine as open as possible, as far back as you go. For some people, going back so far is not really viable. Perhaps the knees, perhaps the ankles are holding them a bit further away from that position, in which case it's often helpful to put support in underneath the chest. Pillows would work just as well here, or cushions, just something so that you don't have to go so far back, but you're able to let your spine lengthen. And in either position, again, it's useful to let your collarbones open outwards, to let your shoulder blades rest wide against the back of your rib cage, and to let your shoulder blades move in the direction of your sitting bones, just gently. That will help to release the neck. So breathing, if your breath feels a little difficult here, you probably need to direct more breath into the back of the chest, where there'll be space for the breath. And again, if you have any conditions like blood pressure where head below the heart is not such a good idea, think in terms of supporting the head on bricks or blocks, or stacking the fists underneath the forehead so that, again, you're not working with your head below your heart for any prolonged period of time here. And that would also actually apply in the bridge, to not rest too long in the bridge. If you've got high blood pressure, the held versions would not be so good for that condition. So that more or less brings us to the close. Let's a little bit open up through the hip joints though before we finish. You can just let the soles of the feet come together and the knees move out towards the sides. You might be able to lean forwards here. There's no need to bring the heels really close to the hip joints. Just allow the legs to be in a position where you're able to keep your spine lengthening. You might be able to move forwards a little bit. Feet don't have to come together either, they can be quite wide. Sometimes sitting on a little bit of support allows the legs to release more freely to the sides. I definitely find that quite helpful myself. My legs and hip joints are able to open a lot more readily here than in the previous position. After all the opening that we've done for the upper back, neck and shoulders, ideally here we keep the collarbones nice and broad and wide, shoulder blades releasing down the back, abdominal muscles are nice and strong to help us in this position. Just another 2 or 3 breaths here. Good. And again, bringing ourselves up and away from that position. So let the legs come into a comfortable seated position, perhaps forwards, perhaps cross-legged. Let's just stretch a little bit once more through the upper back, breathing out to sweep the arms forwards,
Breathing in to lift from the tailbone towards the crown. Breathing out to sweep the arms forwards, good stretch there. Breathing in to lift towards the crown. The last time, breathing out to roll forwards. Breathing in to lift up and relaxing. Thank you very much for watching if you've come this far with me, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.